All right, so I'm just going to kind of start out with one or two questions and then turn it over to you all. And I'm Gil Holland. I'm just happy to moderate this. As you know, when I moved here 11 years ago, one of the first things that I did was print up 500 bumper stickers that said "Keep Louisville Gonzo." So there you go. So Laila, I just want to say, like, I'm a film producer. I've worked on 100 movies, and there are so many great books and so many great like counterculture books that never get turned into a movie, that never actually make it to the screen. So how did you make this movie? You're the producer of this amazing movie. How did it come together?
Okay, that's a long story, but
Louder.
oh, louder? I don't. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
How about no? It's not working either. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so Hunter had sold the rights in perpetuity in 1975 for $10,000. And that was the first thing. When when we started talking about making the movie, I had to find out where the rights were. And they were with these three guys who called themselves Red Shark Productions, and or Shark Productions, I should say. And one guy was this weird Wall Street guy. He kind of looked like Dr. Gonzo, and he was crazy. And the other one was John Juergens, the heir to the Juergens hand cream fortune. And the other one was Bobby Marks, who was Barbara Marx's son. He was a lawyer. And they were, Joe Bianco, the Wall Street guy, was in New York. So I would just go up to his office all the time and try to convince them that they should give back the rights to Hunter or let me try to get the movie made. Because they wanted to get a movie made, they just didn't know how to do it. So finally, after like 2 years of entertaining them and going up there and pleading with them, I finally got them to make a deal that I would produce the movie and get the movie made. They would have the rights revert back to Hunter after 7 years, and they would help fund some of the pre-production, which they did. I mean, the development costs. We spent about $100,000 developing it over 10 years or however long it took, and they got paid back. And so that was how it sort of happened. And then it was just a long haul of nobody wanted to make the movie. People thought it was crazy. There was a period where people were like trying to change the movie, like you can't have people who take drugs, they have to die at the end, you know. And I remember asking Hunter once.
Is that after Thelma and Louise or before?
Oh no, before. It was like, but it was sort of the Just Say No era, you know. It wasn't a great time to try to get the movie made. But I remember telling Hunter that, like, oh, they want, they say that you can't live. And he goes, okay, I have a good ending for them. How about he takes them to the airport, they crash into the plane, and the whole thing blows up in a fireball. But luckily we didn't have to do that. By the time we made the movie, we could just do it the way it was written, kind of. So, and then it was just a long process. It was like an independent movie. I went through many incarnations. Rhino Films said they would help. Then I got Johnny Depp and Benicio attached, and then Terry Gilliam came on, and then our budget doubled, and then Universal just took it on as a negative pickup, which meant they really had no idea what we were doing at all, thank God. And we were gonna just make it. We were sort of half making it anyway when they sort of came on board, and I was happy because we got more money. So it was the.
And how long a shoot was it?
Wasn't very long. I can't remember now, but it was fast. We did everything really fast. There was so much complication in the deal making and trying to get it done and getting enough money. And Terry, the budget was constantly going crazy. You know, Terry we'd go into these production meetings and design meetings, and then people would come to me and say, oh yeah, so we're gonna have a tank that explodes on the side of the road. And I'm like, okay, how much does that cost? And I'm like, I love it, but no tank. We can't have a tank, right? But so it was constant back and forth and to try to wrangle it into something that could actually be produced. So.
And then I also like the way that, camera angles, bring a lot of kind of crazy effects, but there's also just a lot of effects. So post-production must have been a bear.
Yeah, but we did a lot of the effects right there, weirdly. I mean, and some of them were so simple. Like, the whole lizard thing was really like lizard costumes and then mirrors and smoke and some blood thrown on them and stuff like that. I mean, I was poor Rob Bottin, who's like a really amazing special effects guy. And when Benicio turns into that animal, you know, he was like, he wanted to do like, you know, real horns that come out of his head and, you know, all this special effects stuff. And we just didn't have the money. And I had to take him and his special effect guys across the street to the cafe. And I'm like, look guys, you know, we just don't have the money for all that. I said, can't you just get a hoof and kind of stick it through the shirt? Like, you know, it's like, they were looking at me. They were like, okay, you know, just make a wire with horns on it. But basically, kind of, we kind of ended up doing a lot of stuff really simply because we just didn't have the money. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's the way to make a movie. Questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Who has the rights to the autobiography of Brown Buffalo? Anybody?
I don't think anybody does, no. That's Oscar Acosta's book, Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo. And he also wrote Revenge of the Cockroach People. They're great books, actually.
Question in the back.
Hi, will you tell us a little bit about what it was like working with Terry Gilliam?
Yeah. Well, you know, his reputation is well-deserved. You know, he's great in pre-production. You know, he's so creative, and I wanted somebody who was a visualist, definitely. And he definitely has, he's an incredible visualist, and he thinks that way. And he's very open in the process. You know, everybody could talk, everybody could have ideas. There were no closed doors in our offices. And in fact, even when we started production, I mean, we all helped out. I can remember screwing in light bulbs and over signs in Vegas, and he asked me to help distress the room, the last hotel room, because, you know, I could put touches in I knew of Hunter or Oscar, stuff like that. So he was very open to work with creatively, but he's also kind of like a 4-year-old tyrant on the set as well, you know, so, and what else? Well, I don't know. It was hard. Sometimes it was hard because you know why? We were doing it so fast, and I think even for Terry, he had so less money than he was used to, and you know, we had to do it so fast. So everybody was working really hard. But in the end, he was great. I mean, I have no complaints, except for he wouldn't put Sympathy for the Devil in the beginning, and we had a lot of fighting over that, and. You know, he had final cut, so I lost that battle.
In the middle, Matt.
Was this a passion piece for Terry, do you feel like? Was he very familiar with Hunter's work before?
You know, the funny thing is, like many years before, I had contacted Terry to do the movie, and he had rejected me. He'd sent me a fax that said, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do it because I'm going to work on something else. I can't remember what it was. And then when Johnny signed on and Benicio, we didn't have a director, so we started looking at all kinds of people. Oh, sorry. And I said, well, let's go back to Terry Gilliam, you know, and we went back to him, and he said, no, I'm sorry, you know, and I called him again, and I said, look, you know, we have Johnny Depp, we have Benicio, everything's ready to go, and he said, but I'm about to do my other movie. And he had something called, I don't know, some detective, defective detective, which never got made actually. And he said, I'll find out in a week or so if it's going to happen. I said, well, I hope it doesn't happen. He goes, well, that's nice, you know, for our working relationship. I said, I'm just being honest, you know, because if it doesn't happen, you can do this. And actually, his movie fell apart. And so he came on board, and he told me later that he had decided that he was going to try to do a movie from beginning to end in 1 year. And unfortunately, he picked Fear and Loathing, but I mean, you know, so we shot it, edited it, it was out in 1 year.
And that's really fast for a movie.
One of my favorite moves that was made with this movie was having Depp narrate, so we actually get to hear some of the poetics in his language. Was there any kind of issue with the balancing between the drug life and then the actual work of like Hunter's writing?
Well, the reason for the narration was for that, you know, the book is kind of written from a distance. Like, I mean, he's writing, telling the story, and there's so much wonderful writing that you can't illustrate in a film. And I always felt like that if we could if we could somehow find a device, which I figured out when he says, was I talking, did I say that? You could have that device of his inner monologue going on, and you didn't really have to specify, was he talking, did he say it? So it kind of had a trippy effect, but then we could still have a narration of the beautiful writing. Because the wave speech, for instance, and the Tim Leary speech, I call it, and some of the other funny observations he makes along the way were so, to me, integral in making the movie that I didn't want to lose. So I always knew there would be narration. It was just trying to find the trick to make it so that it wasn't so, you know, straight narration kind of thing.
There's like the Rum Diaries and Where the Buffalo Roam and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Would there ever be like a biopic of all of that into one movie?
The question is, will there be a biopic of
A biopic?
several of these into one movie?
I don't know what you mean, like a documentary? Or
Like a collection, like someone would play Bill Murray and someone would play Johnny Depp, and like would like
Oh, you
from
mean
like
like a biopic of Hunter's life?
Yeah.
I have no, well, I don't know. I'm not going to do it.
Somebody should write that. Yes, ma'am.
How much was Hunter involved in this?
Oh, he was involved all the way, as he was kind of my partner in crime in the sense of that, you know, every time there would be a development, you know, he was constantly involved with that. And then when it got to really picking Johnny Depp, and, you know, he was very involved in that. And in fact, one of the real moments, the most important moment, one of them that happened on getting Johnny involved in the movie, we had already been talking to Johnny, but we came here to Louisville for when Hunter got the keys to the city and his Kentucky Colonel thing. And at that time, I was really worried that Rhino was going to make some horrible, their option was running out, and they were threatening to just turn the cameras on some horrible thing. And I said, you know, I mean, Hunter and Johnny were like, well, just let them go ahead because they won't be able to get it together. And I said, oh yeah, they'll get something horrible together and then we'll be stuck with it. We have to fight this battle from within. You guys, you know, Johnny, you got to come in with me and just do it. And so he did. And that's how we got it made. So that happened here, actually. Yeah.
Was that the beginning of their friendship, Hunter and Johnny's?
No, they met in Colorado, actually, but they got closer because of the movie, you know, yeah.
So what did Hunter think of the movie?
He really liked it. Well, we had a screening, we set up a screening for him in Aspen, and both Johnny and I were, and Benicio, we were all like worried sick, you know. Or kind of like kids, you know, who take over their parents' house and then, you know, they don't know what's happened when they were gone, you know. It's kind of like that, like, uh-oh. And he watched the movie and then he called me and he got me and Johnny actually on the line together, and he was like, I'm so proud of you, and I really loved it. And he later had that quote that said it was like an eerie trumpet call over a lost battlefield. So I think he really did enjoy it. Thank God.
What was it like to have Hunter on the set?
Oh God, that was kind of crazy. It didn't happen till much later in the film, towards the end, and we decided we would put him in that Matrix scene, which was that old San Francisco club, the Matrix, where Hunter had actually spent time. And we thought the easiest way was to have him sit there, you know, and so he didn't have to walk around or do anything crazy. And I found a cute girl in the, you know, one of the extras, and put her there so she could, you know, he could be entertained. But the problem was that he came sort of early on in the day, and Terry just tortured him because, like, we didn't do the scene till way late. I don't know why we brought Hunter down there. We were in it was a very weird location. It was kind of like not a very nice location. We had the trailers. He spent most of his time in Johnny's trailer. Johnny had a full bar set up in there, you know, and but he was getting really bored, and he was, you know, he drew a mustache on himself with pen that we had to take off. That was like a nightmare. You know, he was getting kind of antsy, you know, when is this gonna happen, and getting mad and everything. So finally we got to the scene, and then when we did the scene, he was great, you know, everything was fine. And I was Grace Slick, so I also was like distracted because I was supposed to be Grace Slick with the band, and you know, and we had Lyle Lovett there. We had a lot of people there that day, so it was kind of a crazy day. Plus, Flea crashed into the red convertible on his way out, and we couldn't tell Hunter that, you know, so it was just like a crazy day. And then the next day, Hunter was still in town, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, Hunter, do you want to come back to the set?" And he said, "Fuck no, I don't want to go back to that chicken coop," you know. So he only came one day, but that was enough.
Who all did it almost get directed by throughout the process? Who?
Oh my
What other
God! I mean,
options?
there were so many people. Like, well, Jack. I talked to Jack Nicholson about being in it at one point. I wanted Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando to play. I wanted Marlon Brando to play, and John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were going to play the parts with Scorsese directing. That was in 1976. That was going to happen. 77, something like that. Didn't happen. That would have been cool, probably. Lee Tamahori, Alex Cox for a minute, which was not a good idea.
He had a credit though.
Yeah, well, that's a whole writer's story. Yeah,
Alex Cox did Repo Man, if you don't know.
Oh, I talked to everybody. I talked to every director on the planet. You know, it's funny because everybody would talk about it, but it took a lot of courage for somebody to actually say they'd do it, you know, I think. There was Ridley Scott's son, Jake Scott, and I wrote a script at one point. No, there was just, I can't even remember, but I mean, I must have talked to every single person on the planet about making the movie at some point. Any other questions?
All right, one more question.
So it looks like this was a labor of love for you and a lot of networking, getting all this to come together. And I think we all look at it as a time capsule ultimately. Can you give any words of encouragement to the folks who are networking now and trying to keep this flame going? Because it's exactly just like that, a labor of love.
You mean your own projects?
The
Or?
Gonzo Fest and everything you're trying to do in Louisville, yeah.
Oh, in Louisville and Gonzo Fest and everything?
Like you were saying, it sounds like the forming of the film is a lot like what it's been like forming the festival for Denny and all. So, you know, if you have any words of encouragement.
Well, I mean, I think any project that you do as something that you're passionate about takes, you know, I think the passion helps you in the end take the rejection, because there's always going to be 10-to-1 rejection. There's always going to be no, 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 you can't do it. Your dreams are too big. This can never happen. You know, people have often said to me, you have such persistence, and that's true. It takes a lot of persistence. It takes getting up every day and going, all right, so 10 people just said no, and I'm going to get up and do it again tomorrow anyway. And I think also, you know, projects have their own rhythm, you know, like they come and go. Like Fear and Loathing definitely did. There were times when I couldn't, you know, nothing was happening. There was nobody to talk to. People had said no, whatever. I was at a dead end with it. So I kind of did something else or turned my attention to something else, and then suddenly there would be somebody, you know. I mean, I met Rob Bottin, who did the special effects, like maybe 3 years or 4 years before he ever did the movie. I met him at a party and I said, okay, when I do Fear and Loathing, will you do Fear and Loathing? He said, yes, I will. And then I called him up 4 years later. Hi, remember me? Okay, we're doing Fear and Loathing. And you get $5, you know, but you know, he wanted to do it. And so it's that enthusiasm when you network and meet people, even if you don't know when it's going to happen, if you have the enthusiasm and for the project and you have the passion, that will never die. And you have to sort of trust. I mean, in my mind, I sort of thought it's going to happen. I just, you know, for so long, you know, it was me in my apartment alone in New York, and then I came out to LA thinking, no one's going to do this. It's just me. You know, and I remember the first day when we were shooting, and there were all these people running around, and I thought, oh my God, there's all these people who are obsessed as I am now, you know? And that's what happens. So even if it starts with one or a few or whatever, if you keep the persistence going and you keep the flame lit, it has a way of growing sometimes on its own. So that's all I can say.
That is a great ultimate question, and thank you to Gonzo Fest. Everybody's working hard. Ron, you want to say something?
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Gil Scott Holland is not only one of the big supporters of art and culture in Louisville, he's also one of the big supporters of Gonzo Fest. So I want to thank Gil for moderating the Q&A and for continuing to support us. And I want to thank Laila
Yeah.
for your tenacity in seeing a dream through to its fruition, and for coming to Gonzo Fest and with the Thompson family to make it the most special Gonzo Fest yet. So thank you, and thank y'all for
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Larry.
And I could
Oh yeah, and you'll sign books?
Yeah, sure, outside or DVDs or whatever, or you just want to come and chat or whatever.
So Layla will be in the lobby if people want to further questions or get signatures.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.